Hello and a very warm welcome, and it really is a very warm welcome to the old shop. It's been a really hot day today, although it's going to be actually, I think, quite a bit hotter tomorrow, which is Monday and Tuesday. But it's been pretty hot today, and I've been inside quite a lot of the time packing my candles. I think the ones I'm doing now are will be the last of the ones that have been pre-ordered at least. I'm going to get them to the post office tomorrow, and then there'll be a little gap. Which I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm looking forward to getting the sitting room back, because it's all, and the kitchen come to that. But for now, I popped outside and I thought we could have a quick look round the garden, such as it is at the moment, because it's a little bit cooler now, and I thought I'd like to show you the front garden as well, because lots of things have happened since our last video. What I'm showing you at the moment is just, as you can probably see, a tub with some Alpine Strawberries in, and also this clematis, which is quite new and so it hasn't flowered yet. I think it's more of an autumn flowering one, but we shall see how that goes. Anyway, what I was going to just talk about a little bit was the Alpine Strawberries and other bits and pieces of fruit. What I find good is to just pick a few. I've only got a few of everything at the moment, so it's surprising how they add up if you just go around and pick a few every day that you see. A few raspberries, a few blackcurrants, well, I think I've had all the blackcurrants now, a few redcurrants, which we'll see further up the garden, and so on. And I'm just freezing them actually as I go, and it's surprising how they add up, and they'll make quite a few smoothies eventually, even though it feels like a really tiny crop. There's a lot of sounds of harvesting in the background. It has been all day, because there's a lot of harvesting going on. All the fields are golden and ripe, and this combine sound is just a constant whir in the background, which I love because it's all very seasonal. And there have been hay bales in the field for a while, but I think they're actually harvesting the grain now while it's so dry. Now we looked at this back part of the garden, the wilderness, last time we came out, so I'm not really going to major in on this. I just wanted to quickly, with very good reason, as you can see, nothing's changed. I've been really busy with the candles, and I knew I was going to be in this last 2 weeks. Look at this! I must just show you the watering can. Well, you'll have to take it on trust from me that this is the watering can, because it's a little bump, so I'm sure it is. But I'm really looking forward to working on this in the next little while, once it cools down a tiny bit after the next couple of days. And I'm going to allow myself, I don't know, I'm not going to say quite how long, but a while, to just do things like catching up, which I'm going to really enjoy. I want to show you some things like the plums, which I don't know if you can get a scale. I've got my hand in there. Are really coming out, coming quite large. There aren't many, like all the fruit in the garden. There's just a few on every tree or on every bush, but it's surprising really how that adds up. And the exception to that is the pear tree, which we looked at before, but as you can see, they've grown quite substantially. Again, I've put my hands here so you can see the size. So they're really turning into proper little pears, and there are actually a lot on this pear tree. So if they, I don't want to count my chickens, because last year the other pear tree had loads on and they all just disappeared overnight, which I believe was pigeons. So, you know, I don't want to say, oh, there's going to be dozens of, well, a couple of dozen pairs, but there might be. With any luck, there will be. There's not much else to show you in this area really, because that's really why I was not going to do this area today, other than if we look at it now, then I'm hoping I'll be able to show you something, you know, some sort of improvement, if that's the right word, next time we come and have a look. I'll just show you this apple tree, because this has got probably the second most apples on it in the garden, or fruit on it, and that's my Adam's pear main. And again, they are really becoming, my hand here, apple sized. So it's very, very pleasing indeed. And the buddleia is in flower. People have been saying that they haven't seen so many butterflies this year, and I believe that there's actually a butterfly count going on at the moment, a garden butterfly count, and that the people who organised it have been worried because last year there was a definite decline, and they want to see whether that continues or whether it was just a blip. But I have to report that in this garden there have been masses of butterflies. I really have been well, overwhelmed is the wrong word because they're so lovely. It doesn't sound a very nice word, being overwhelmed, but I have been very overwhelmed by the number of butterflies fluttering around all the time. Lots of painted ladies, red admirals, peacock butterflies, well, a few of other things like holly blue and I think meadow brown and so on. So very, very lucky in the garden here. I'm going to take you though, rather than looking at this again, feasting your eyes on the thistles. And there's another apple there actually, I'll just show you in between the thistles. That is called Tidman or Tideman, Tydman, late. So I assume they are going to be a late apple. I wanted to have a variety of apples that came, you know, ripened at a variety of different times, which is why I chose that one. That had a very promising sound about it. But what we're going to look at today is the vegetable garden. Now, until quite recently, this has just been a very sorry looking area, and it's still a fairly sorry looking area in all fairness, but I have put seeds in, late seeds in, and there are things coming up. So I'll just show you what I've got. I have a bit of ground elder actually in the bed, and although I don't mind ground elder in general, I am going to take it out of the beds just to keep it a little bit pure, so that it doesn't take over on the actual vegetable beds. But what I've got here are carrots. That's what you can see, the ferny looking foliage here. And there's also some beetroot. They aren't doing very well. I think they've been eaten by something, the tops, but you can see the lovely purple stems there. And some turnips and some radishes, which I've actually been eating. So actually harvesting from the garden, which is quite exciting because I really haven't done very much work to deserve to be harvesting stuff. But you can see radishes there, and there's also purple radishes down there, and I've had some of each of those. They're very, very nice. I love radishes though. And there's dill here. That's another ferny foliage, looks a bit like the carrots. And there's some baby leeks, which are the grassy looking things there. And it's like a seed bed for the leeks. I shall plant them out. I don't know whether it's too late, but you know, you never know. It's definitely worth a try. And there's some coriander next to them. And then I've got some perpetual spinach here. And I think I put in some more radishes. And then I've got some baby courgette plants, which I grew from seed, here and here. And there are lots of marigolds, calendulas here, but they have seeded themselves. I had them last year, and in fact I think the year before, and I have been harvesting those as I go along a little bit. I'm drying them. I want to make some Calendula Salve, which is really good for sore and chapped and just general skin care really. So I have found in the past that I'm not a very I don't like to just keep drying things and trying to make things out of them and then not using them. So I want to try and focus on a few things that I know I'm going to make and that I know I'm going to use or give as gifts, because I think that way it'd be much more satisfactory than trying to do too many things and not doing them very well. So I'm just drying, for that purpose, I'm just drying calendulas and roses, which are also very, very good, and lavender, which is really a very, very useful infusion of oil infusion to make salves from, and a couple of other things that I've collected from the wild, like yarrow and mugwort, but we'll look at those in the cottage at some point. They're hanging up to dry at the moment. And what we're looking at now, which is actually a bit more of a success story, I suppose, well, the proof will be when they actually have crops on them, but they are peas and beans. These are broad beans. I know they're very, very late, but you can keep sowing right through. So I've just started very late, and some beautiful, beautiful coriander here, really lovely, and some more broad beans, and these are dwarf beans. So none of them are actually fruiting yet. Fruiting? Do you call it fruiting with vegetables? But you know what I mean, producing. But they are looking really healthy, and trying to keep them watered and everything. And there's another little row of, I think, radishes along the back just to use the space up, and then some more of the courgettes that I grew. I actually grew them from seeds, but I didn't put them in. I followed Hugh Richards' advice, which was just to literally put them on damp kitchen paper in a propagator, not a heated one. I just had a sort of seed tray with a plastic lid, and when you actually see them sprouting, the little roots coming out, and they just break their seed cases, then you plant them, and you get a better success rate that way, apparently. And they did all come up, so he's probably, you know, there's onto something there, and I shall do it in that way in the future. Again, they're very late, but I think as long as we do get some good, continue to get some good weather in terms of warmth, which is looking quite likely at the moment, then there's no reason really why I shouldn't get some reasonable crops from them, even though it's quite small numbers. And there's some runner beans over here, and I was given these plants a long time ago, but I put them in quite a long time ago as well. They were the first thing that went in, and they are setting some little beans here, so it won't be too long before there's something to eat from there as well, which is quite exciting. And I don't think we looked at this side, which is only wilderness really, like the other part of the garden. But what I wanted to show you nonetheless was that the two original trees, when I say original, there were no trees in the garden left, but the first two that I planted were this one, which is a rowan, and there's a hawthorn, which we'll go and look at in a minute. But what I did was I planted against the trellis some clematis, wanting to hide the trellis and, you know, screen from next door and everything. And what I hoped was the ones that I grew next to the trees would grow into the trees, and that is exactly what they've done. There's a butterfly just drifting past, as if to illustrate what I was saying about butterflies. Even though it's a little bit later in the season for them now, I think some of them have finished doing their reproducing. I'm not quite sure, but certainly the painted ladies all seem to rush in, and they don't seem to be here so much anymore. Anyway, I'm just showing you from all sides because I know there's bindweed as well. Don't look too closely, but at the same time it's lovely that the clematis, and I can't tell you which one it is. It might be Polish spirit. I've got a Polish spirit and an étoile violette, and they're both very similar to each other, but I do love them both. I'll just show you the other one, which is the hawthorn here, which is actually a pink hawthorn. Didn't realise that when I got it. I I preferred the common hedgerow white one, but it doesn't matter. I'm lucky to have a lovely tree like this. It's got quite tall and big. It was a bigger tree when I put it in. It wasn't one of the little hedging type ones. And in this one as well, there's a clematis, purple clematis growing, which is here on the trellis as well. You see it's climbed itself into the tree. So you can kind of, I mean, if you've a good imagination, admittedly, you can kind of start to see the effect that I'm hoping for, which is wildness, but with productivity and wildlife friendliness. And, well, that's basically the main things. I've had a lot of problems, if that's the right word, with the leaves of plants being eaten, like this. These are redcurrants, and as you can probably see, actually you see the redcurrants, and the birds don't tend to pick them off, so I will be picking them, or I have been picking them a bit, but the leaves have been eaten by something. So it's a very sorry sight. They're almost leafless in places, and yet the actual red currants have been able to form. So I'm just sort of turning a blind eye. I don't really know what else to do. I'm hoping that in time, I'll just show another area here. See, that's where they were leaves, and they've just been eaten away completely. But I'm confident, and I'm definitely sticking to it, that in time, just by having such a variety and diversity of plants and so many things that the birds and butterflies and other insects, bees and pollinators all love, that I believe that in time that it'll find its own balance. I don't think it's been eaten by slugs or snails. I don't see a lot of evidence at all of slugs or snails in the garden, which a lot of people have issues with, but I don't seem to, I mean, I shouldn't speak too soon, but I don't seem to have a lot of problem with that. It is more, I guess they're probably caterpillars that have eaten those leaves. I'm not really sure. This is a blackcurrant here. There's several blackcurrants, and they've all had a few blackcurrants on, but this one had loads. So I'm going to try and take some cuttings from it. I didn't even know they were there, and suddenly I looked, and they were hanging off in bunches. And I actually made a little batch of jam, just the kind of jam that you make, not the jam you keep in jars, but you can just simmer up some blackcurrants or other fruit with some maple syrup and a dash of water, and then once it's soft, you just put in a couple of tablespoons of chia seeds and bubble it again for another 5 minutes, say, and then it makes a kind of jam you can keep in the fridge. It doesn't keep that long probably, but I've never had a problem with it because I tend to use it, and there was only enough to have it about 3 times on porridge. But I love blackcurrants. It was delicious. It was very, very much worth it, and that was all from this one blackcurrant bush. So I have very high hopes for this. I don't know what sort it is, as I always say. I do know what some things are, but I don't know what that blackcurrant is. So I think that's probably all we're going to need to catch up on today in terms of the back garden. But I will show you the front garden. I've just been out there and I've deadheaded it a bit and I've watered it. There is going to be a lot to do once I can get onto this job, but I'm so looking forward to it, and I should be just tidying up just here. But this beautiful honeysuckle is out as well, and there's a lot of vervain. Vervain is a magical herb and it loves it here, which pleases me very much. You see in the gravel here, it's all seeded itself. This is all vervain. And I think there are several old rhymes and sort of like old sayings about it, but one that I know is, "All hail, thou holy herb vervain, growing on the ground. Blessed is the place whereon thou art found," which is, of course, rather nice to have just in front of your cottage. Look at this; it's growing really well there. The plants in the pots are looking, I know you'll be able to see, looking pretty yellow. They do need some feeding, but again, I'm on the case. It will happen. The sun's gone off the back garden completely now, and I've watered it, which is why it's looking damp, not because of any rain or anything like that. The hose doesn't quite reach, so I had to just sort of stand and spray it, which is why everything is dripping. But it's actually very refreshing after this hot day. It looks almost tropical. And if you saw the last video, which I did I think a couple of weeks ago, you may be surprised at how things have changed and grown, because although then the roses had finished, as they still have, more or less. There's a few near the porch up here, so I'm having to negotiate. Here we are, there. But there's also, because I've been deadheading, which is something I have kept. See, it's easy. The front garden's easy to deal with. I mean, if this was all the garden there was, well, I wouldn't keep it quite like this because I'd need to be doing a bit of vegetable production. But at the same time, it would be easy. It might look like a wilderness, but I know this is not a wilderness. I don't think there's any bindweed here at all, or it's all what I want it to be, basically. So yeah, this is quite easy to look after. But because I've been deadheading the roses, there are lots here of rose buds, so there'll be a second flush, and I think that's probably the Boscabel, and the other one is the Desdemona, and they've both got buds on. This is the Japanese Anemone, which wasn't out at all last time we looked, but as you come around to the garden, we'll see that at least one of them is actually properly out, the flowers. This is the Sanguiscorba, and again this is all out. It really is quite remarkable how everything's been growing. And what else should we look at? Now the heleniums, which I said were just about to come out. I don't know if you can hear the combine harvesters in the background, it's quite loud. They're out, or a lot of them are. And this spire-like plant, which is called Foranicastrum, that's just on the verge of flowering. Oh, it's a moth. I guess the moths like the kind of cool dampness of the early evening that we now have. We've got Emily Bronte, a little flower there as well, and some Lady of the Lake just at the top there, just out again. And well, you know, more of the same really. There are quite a few repeats around the garden. The little pond has got quite dry, but I have put some more water in there today. And as you can probably see, there's lots of little Alpine strawberries around the pond as well. Little fairy strawberries, which I've been collecting. These look better in some ways than the others, but they're not quite so flavourful as the ones at the back. And I think that's because they've been grown a bit drier and a bit harder at the back, and I think that might be actually quite good for them in terms of the flavour. Whereas these are a bit lush, and so they're a little bit kind of water in without so much flavour, which is interesting to note. This is the Japanese anemone, which is out, and I think there are a few different ones, not all the same. This is a sort of double one, so I think it might be called Pamina, because I think that's the double one that I had. And the heleniums and the grasses are making a real picture now. As you can see, I could probably take some photographs. I can sort of see a photograph in there. Yeah, that's for when the light is a bit better. And again, this repeat of the Veronicastrum, but against the holly hedge, it's quite nice. And the sea holly there's a few of those, and they're all, I know I always say this, but they are really good for wildlife, overwintering wildlife. You don't cut them down, you let the head stay, and they provide a very good resting place and a sort of wintering place for insects. So that's my thoughts, and that's what I've been doing. I did it last year as well, left everything. And you've also got the sculptural effect of the seed heads as well, so everyone wins. The willow, which I always say, oh, it's not tall enough to make an arch yet, I think it probably is now. I could start weaving that together. But what I'm not sure about, I don't know if anybody knows and could tell me, whether when you make these willow arches, whether the side branches here, which are kind of, I don't know if you can really tell, but I'll just step back a little bit. There's lots and lots of side branches. It almost covers the walkway through. Whether you cut them off or whether you just sort of twist them together and twist them into the arch, I don't know. But if anyone knows the best way to do it, please let me know. The blackberries are now forming. I think last time we looked there was probably a massive blossom, but unless we get some more rain, or some rain would help, I don't know whether it'll come to anything. It's really sad down the lane. There's lots and loads of fruit. It would be an amazing year for blackberries, but unless it gets a bit damper, I think what will happen is what's happened in the last couple of years, that it's just shriveled up. At the moment it's really pretty. I love those colours, the kind of pinks and greens and purples all together like this, but it might be the nicest it looks, because I really find it sad, the sight of it all shriveled and browned, which is, yeah, it happened last year and the year before. So I'm hoping for better things. I don't know whether it is forecast to improve. When I say improve, I mean for us to have some rain, but it's certainly not in the next week or two, I don't think, or in no certainty of it at least. So I hope I haven't rushed around too much. I hope you've got some sense of how the season's moving on, and really how amazingly much the front garden here has grown and developed in just a couple of weeks since we looked last time. I'd like to be able to show you more progress at the back, and I will be able to show you more progress at the back. So, you know, watch this space. And before we finish, I just wanted to show you some of the herbs I've got drying here. They didn't all come from the garden. In fact, most of them I found just down the lane and foraged for. There's some St John's wort, and there's lavender along here as well, which wasn't foraged, it was from the garden. And there's some hyssop, which is also from the garden. I don't really know what I want to use hyssop for, but it's a very old and magical herb, so I thought it would be nice to preserve some. I've been hanging the bunches wherever I can find a little space. So there's my yarrow there, which I found a lot of on the lane, and this is mugwort just here. So there's quite a variety, and there's some more elsewhere as well around the house. Wherever I could find a little hook or something, I've been hanging up bunches. And with this dry weather, it's been drying really quickly. It's probably ready to do something with. I thought I'd just finish by showing you the scene out of the sitting room window and how lush it is. It's amazing, isn't it, that this has grown up so much in such a short while now. So if I just show you through the window, I'm sorry if the window's not the cleanest it might be. It just looks like a jungle out there. So it's goodbye from me and goodbye from my friends here on the kitchen windowsill. Until next time.